Hi there, everybody. Thanks again for tuning into another episode of Complete Sports Media. Today, well, we've got a special show for you today, and we're going to be featuring Jason Cameron talking about life. Life growing up for him was different from me, different from all of you. He's going to give some perspective, and we're going to get a chance to meet more of the man that gives us regular contributions to the show. I'm your host, Darren Campbell, and we're really excited to be able to shed some light on some of our regular contributors. Jason's become one of my really good friends and a guy that I really enjoy having in my life. I know a little bit about his background and his history, and I'm really glad that he's going to take the time to shed some light on his life and the things that he's been through as a black kid, as a black man, growing up here in Canada and traveling around the world, having opportunities to see some of the social injustice, some of the racial discrimination. Luckily, he has some positive stories to shed light on too, that he was treated quite well through his school days and things like that. So hope you enjoy this. I'm really looking forward to this hour. Just hold on as we get Jason through. Thank you. Okay, looks like we've got Jason, and there he is. Hey, Jason, happy Monday to you. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I actually went out boating on Saturday. That was fun. I didn't get in the water though. I only do so much. I like to stay in the boat, but it was a lot of fun. I had a tremendously good time.
Good,
As it were.
good.
It's good.
Yeah, it's been beautiful weather. We've been finally blessed with some good stretch of weather, and it's nice to be able to get out for barbecues, get out for boating, get out for fun activities, and I'm glad you took part of it. Took part in it. So did I, and I've had a great weekend. I feel refreshed and feel great, and I'm glad we've got another call here today. I just did an introduction on you, and I'm glad that we're doing this today. I thought about doing this for the last couple weeks, and you were kind enough to say you would agree, and we get a chance to find out about you and your life and all the things that have gone into you becoming the man you are, and somebody that I look fondly upon, and so does all your friends and family. And I know you've written down some things, so you're going to read some of it to us. But yeah, it's really great that we've been doing this for the past month, and I look forward to many, many more. And I really look forward to our viewers and listeners getting an opportunity to find out more about you. So take it away, Jason. Yeah, shed some light on your upbringing and growing up here, and how you've become who you are.
Okay, well, here we go then. And then this is just like, I guess you could say, a quick excerpt about how I grew up during my high school times. All right, so here I go. So growing up for me as a black kid in Canada was a very unique experience. I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, grew up there for the first 10 years of my life. In Edmonton, there's quite a large Caribbean community that lives there. So I grew up quite accustomed to seeing other kids that looked like myself. I also had one of the best mothers a man could ever ask for, and to this day, I can still hear the words of wisdom she reinforced in me as I grew up. Always be mindful of what you're doing, because they will always see you first before anyone else. These words are a constant reminder on how to conduct myself as I live my life. I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a wide range of people of different backgrounds and cultures in Edmonton. Things changed though when me and my mom went on a trip to beautiful BC for Expo 86. It was the second time that Canada had hosted a World Fair. And as a kid, it was just cool to see all the exhibits and such. But for my mom, it was quite a different thing altogether. What she saw was an opportunity to move. At this point in time, she was absolutely sick of the minus 40-degree winters in Alberta, and she wanted to live somewhere more temperate. So before you know it, we moved to BC in 1989, and that was quite the culture shock for me, because I went from a community with a strong Black Caribbean presence to Abbotsford, BC, where there was a grand total of 5 to 6 Black families, period, in the city. And when I showed up to elementary and high school, I was usually the only black student in the entire school. So I had to adjust to this new normal, so to speak. I made new friends, friends I am proud to say I still have to this day, and they come from all walks of life and all socio-economic backgrounds. I was extremely fortunate that when I faced discrimination or racism, I did not face it alone. My friends always had my back and walked through the fires of racial discrimination with me. And to a greater extent, that spread to my graduating class as well for my high school. I joke about this, but it definitely felt like this is perfectly describes my time in high school. It was like I was an endangered species, and everybody wanted to make sure that I was protected and safe. Like I said, I was extremely fortunate to have this widespread safety net from everyone that knew me at school. I've always thought that this is the way it should be if someone comes against the ugliness of racism and others would see that the injustice in that and speak up. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to have so many people speak up on my behalf, and I'm incredibly honored by that. But by no means does that mean that I avoided racism altogether. There was one time in particular that comes to mind where I think I was about 16 years old at a party, and some of the adults found out that I was at said party. My friends overheard what they planned to do to me when they got a hold of me. My friends got me out of that party in a heartbeat, saved me from getting a beating from these individuals or possibly worse. When I think back on that particular moment in time, if they had got a hold of me, who knows if I'm here to talk about my experiences today. But we are on the precipice of a major fundamental change in our global community as we tackle systemic racism. And not just with token words, but with real policy change and action that will take all of us in our own way to fight social injustice and the systemic racism that is ravaging our society. It will take time, but not nearly as much time with all of us working toward the same goal. I know we can get there because through my own personal, unique experience, the way forward was shown by speaking up. Speak up and speak out against the ugliness of racism. I was fortunate enough that it wasn't just my close friends, but my graduating class that fought with me against the racism I had to face. I'm going to end what I have to say here from a quote from JFK, that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. The reason why I gravitate towards this line so much is because it describes my time in high school, because I was the one man whose rights were constantly threatened, but my friends and classmates stood up for me, which made us all better. So we as a people, as a society, will continue to work to strive toward the goal of a truly uplifted society free of the bonds of injustice. And that's what I got to say for today.
Wow. Wow. So powerful, man. Wow. That's amazing. I'm touched by the humanity that your fellow classmates showed you. Um, you won't be able to mention all your classmates, but talk about some of the ones that really stood out for you.
Oh well, I guess some of the ones that have always stood out for me, like, well, first off, I'll go with my friends. There's my buddy Corey Calv, my friend Double J, Jeff Johnson. Oh my God, Joel Van Get. Like, there's quite a number. Kevin Pataki and all the Pataki brothers. They were with me from the beginning, and they're with me still now. And I couldn't ask for better friends in high school. They always had my back, especially whenever I was confronted with stuff like that. And then with classmates, period, like Kathy Scarf, Haley Cavell, you know, I just know that my personal experience going through high school was very unique. I have a lot of other friends of color that cannot even come close to anything that I've said today. Their experience was very, very different from mine. And that's how I know that I was truly blessed to have those people in my life, to have graduated with such a such a fantastic group of people as well. Like, I couldn't have lucked out any better, considering the situation that I was in, considering the fact that it was just me all alone. I was just like me unto an island unto itself. was the only black student there for a very, very long time. People would come in and out, but I was the mainstay.
I
I was
see.
always the mainstay. So,
So did you worry that you'd experience racism when you left Edmonton? You said there was a predominantly Caribbean community there. Where you when you first entered the school? What were your first few days, first few weeks like? Or were you like really scared that you would face that? Is that a concern you had?
ah, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think about any of that. What I actually thought was, okay, this is just a new adventure for me, and hopefully I get to meet some good friends, because you have to remember at this point in time when I came over, I was still rather young. I was like about 10 or 11 years old. So my mom was more worried about it than I was, obviously, for a very good reason. But I was just looking forward to the fact of, okay, this is a new school, this is just a new thing completely. And then once we moved and we got to Abbotsford, I asked my mom, I go, so where are the black people? Are there any of us here? And she goes, well, uh, we'll find them. It's gonna just take some time. It's gonna take a lot of time. But no, honestly, I guess I was more open to the fact of whatever may come comes. I'll deal with it as it comes. But for now, you know what? I'm just going to be hopeful for my future, and I'm just going to look forward to whatever may come my way. And luckily, a lot of good things did come my way. A lot of good things came my way. So a
Glad
lot
to
more
hear.
good than bad, I should say.
Wow, glad to hear that. Yeah. Can you state what your mom said again? You had written down something that you carried forward in your life. Can you reiterate that again?
Yeah, like basically, just be mindful what you're doing, because they will always see you first before anyone else. So always just conduct yourself in a way that, well, actually, I can make that even simpler. Always conduct myself in a way that she would be proud of, period. And if I do that, if I do those things, I should be okay. I should be okay. Doesn't necessarily mean I will be okay, but for, I would say, 90% of the time, I should be all right if
Great.
I do the things that she said that I should always keep in mind. Because if there's one thing that is like very clear to me and very true, is that they do see me first, and that becomes with law enforcement or anybody else in authority. You know, I stand out from the crowd, and I have to know that mere fact of me standing out the front from the crowd singles me out too as well. So
Did you ever have any encounters with the police where it seemed like there was some profiling going on? They pulled you over just because they saw that you were black. Did you
oh
ever
yeah,
encounter some worry with being pulled over by the police in any types of situations like that?
oh yeah, of course, yep, yep. Well, there's actually one particular moment that stands out. Again, happened in a high school in particular, uh, where, let's say, I was going straight through a light, and a cop was just turning left, so he was going to go, going the opposite direction. He saw my face, and I knew from his look he's going to follow me immediately. I actually was just going to basketball practice, and I was with a friend of mine. And my friend goes, "Oh, that was weird." I go, "Oh, I'm driving, so he's going to follow us now." He goes, "Are you serious?" I go, "Well, just watch what he does." And yep, he pulled in right behind us. Now, he did not pull us over because of the speed of which where we were to where high school was. Like, so basically went through the lights, went to high school, parked my mom's car, which I'm sure he was running the place to make sure if the car was stolen or not. Found out the car was stolen. And so as I got out of the car, we grabbed all our basketball gear to go play basketball, go to practice. I looked at him to see if there's going to be anything more. There was nothing more there. So that was good. And that was the end of that particular story. And yes, there's been other times where I've been pulled over, and I know that I wasn't speeding. I didn't have any lights out. There was no lights out. There was, ah, there was nothing. But I do know that I was driving while being myself. So with that being said, maybe there was an undercurrent of maybe I'm up to something other than going to work. So
Wow.
it happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to realize that it's going to happen. Like as great as Canada is, we're not perfect and we're not there yet. And as great as Canada is, at least we're not the US of A. We're not there either. You know, we
Yeah.
still have improvements we can make here, but at least we're not so far away as they are down
Talk about the differences between Canada and the U.S. and why do you think Canada's so different? Experience, person like yourself would have, I think, growing up down there, you would have had quite a different experience with all this. Why do you think? Why do you think we see such a difference between the two countries?
there. I think number one for the US, it's so ingrained in their social consciousness that it's just going to be a very, very difficult thing to overcome going ahead in the future. Um, with us, it's here too, but I think it's more geared towards the indigenous people and than blacks, I would say. And also too, again, with it being so ingrained in the social consciousness of the U.S., um, there's always a threat with law enforcement. Unfortunately, I feel the difference as soon as I go across the border into the U.S. of A. There's a definite different feel. I can confidently say that I can go to the convenience store here in Canada and not die. I can't say that in the US of A because that's exactly what happened to George Floyd. He went to the convenience store and he died. You know, and that's it's tragic, it's sad, it should never have happened, but the problem is it happens down there all the time. And then that's why it has to change. It has to stop. It has to be at some point in time where this nonsense has to stop. And with that being said, at least here in Canada, I can, like I said, I go to a convenience store and not be killed. And then you know what? That's a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good.
Describe the feeling when you've been down in the U.S. Describe the feeling that you just have a uneasiness. What is it? Can you put it into words? Just how it's just different. You cross a border, you cross a line, and there's just a cultural difference. Can you put it into words?
It's hard. It's I guess you would say for myself, anyways, it'd be more of a feeling. It's a very much a sense of unease, especially if I'm being pulled over by a cop. Then I better be perfect in my approach to said cop because I have no idea how this interaction might end for me. Not for him. I'm just talking about for me. And so you could say that my guard is definitely up a lot more. I'm very much more conscious of my surroundings and my environment. My head is on a swivel at all times because I need to protect myself more importantly than anything else. And I just need to make sure that I'm not acting suspiciously or I'm just conducting myself just, as your normal everyday person in society and just not giving them a reason just to come at me with anything. I don't need to give those people a reason because if I do give them a reason, well, I could end very, very poorly for me.
Yeah. So let's shed a little bit of light on your parents. Your dad. How long was your dad in the picture in your life? Was he there for quite a few years, or did he leave at a very young age?
Yeah. So my mom and my father never got married. So my father had left the picture when I was very young, I believe when I was 3. And and then there was a reconnection later on in life. when I was about 18, and then another reconnection later on in life when I was in my 30s. So the person that raised me, the person I emulate, the person I try to model myself after is my mother. My mother had a very hard job because she basically wore both hats. She was my mom. She acted as my mother and my father. So she wore both. She was an incredible woman, and I I I I I credit her with being who I am today. I very much credit her with being who I am today. So
Yeah, I've heard you talk so highly of her, and I can tell that she must have been an amazing woman because you're an amazing guy, and doing it by yourself, having to be the mother and the father. What type of work did she do?
oh, my mom was she was a registered nurse, psychiatric nurse actually, because she used to work at Riverview Hospital back in the day. And then nearing the end, she transitioned. She worked for a old folks home in Abbotsford, Bevan Lodge, and then that's where she worked. That's where she worked at until, unfortunately, she passed away about 10 years ago due to cancer.
We've heard a ton of great stories of frontline workers over this pandemic, and we've been able to realize who the real heroes are. You and I talk sports all the time and talk about these sporting heroes, but these frontline workers that have helped people endure this pandemic and go through it all. Your mom was one of them, from being a nurse and being a frontline worker like that. Yeah, you have to be super proud of what she contributed to the world. Working at an old folks home and things like that. That's we've been able to really see that those are the real heroes. Like I said.
Oh yeah, most certainly, man. Like anybody that's actually putting themselves at risk to make sure that the rest of us are going to get the help that we need is, well, you know what, they're special human beings. They really are, every single one of them. And yeah, uh very proud to know that my mom was a nurse, and she was very skilled and good at her job, just as I'm sure everybody else out there that is dealing with nurses are dealing with this pandemic as we go through it. And yeah, it gladdens my heart to know that these people are there to help us if any of us ever go down with this COVID thing.
You talk. Most people, when they speak to somebody that grew up black in North America, they talk so highly of their moms and what they had to do. Most of them had to do multiple jobs. Most of them had to really work super hard to help the family. There's an unfortunate large number of black males that aren't in the family picture anymore. Is there anything that why that's the case, and why hopefully it's something that can be reversed and changed, because it must be tough for so many of these moms and so many of these families just having a single parent household.
Um, yeah, I guess it would be one of those things where I would say it would be pointed to how you're brought up, and knowing that, okay, so this is what my father did to me by stepping out or leaving. Would I want to do that to my own child going forward? The answer for me is a clear no, because that's that's just not the right thing to do. You shouldn't do that. Like if you're going to, commit to making a child or doing this or that, then you've committed. And then, so now it's your responsibility and you have to hold yourself accountable for your said actions. That's a life that needs your help. So you should be there to help raise the life that you made, And so I would say it would be more towards just how how young black men are raised, to know that you can't just leave at the drop of a dime when things get hard. You actually have to work through these things, and you have to put forth your full effort to try to make it work, at least try to make it work before you step out and you say, nah, I'm good, and I'm gone, right?
Yep.
And unfortunately, within the within the Caribbean community, that does happen quite a bit. But hopefully with time and effort, and with strong mothers like I had, they'll be reinforcing within their sons that if you're going to go and you're going to create life, be man enough to take care of it as well.
Yeah. So, what happened? Your father wasn't in the picture. You've said you've had some, you know, encounters with him a little bit over the years, but he hasn't really been in the picture. When your mom passed away, who did you turn to for family support? What happened there?
Okay, well, I was, again, very fortunate and lucky. My support came from my mom's best friend, who I say with pride is definitely my second mother, and she's the one that supported me through that ordeal, and it was quite the ordeal, because when my mom passed away, it was the equivalent of myself losing both parents at the same time. It was incredibly hard to get through, but God bless her heart, Mrs. Pataki, Janie, was there with me every step of the way. And I probably couldn't have gotten through it without her help or her support. So I truly thank her for that, and her husband, and her sons, which are like my brothers. The entire family helped me. And then along with the entire family was my inner circle of friends, my family as well. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of support, especially when you go through that time, that dark time, where you don't think you have any support. You think you're alone. You're not alone. You're never alone. As long as if you have the capability just to look past the grief, everybody's there that you'll need. Everybody's always been there that you'll need.
Well, Abbotsford obviously is your hometown, but you did transition to Vancouver and have lived in Vancouver for many years now. Tell me about your experience once you came to Vancouver on your own. You've forged great careers, many many friends. Life has seemed to have been pretty good for you. Tell me about that.
All right. So when I finished high school, I was lucky enough to have gotten myself some scholarships, some bursaries, and then I ended up going to UBC. Well, UBC was a lot of fun. I had a great time there. But again, I had to be accustomed to this new norm at UBC, because then the landscape of, like, the racial landscape changed again, because unbeknownst to me until I got there, there's a huge Asian community out at UBC, which was cool for me to see, because I really hadn't experienced a lot of that when I was in Abbotsford. Because in Abbotsford, you have your Caucasian, and then you have Indo-Canadian, and that's kind of where that lies. So it was great for me to see that part of the community, to interact with that part of the community, see, like, what they were into, their likes, dislikes. Um, but I don't know, it's just my whole university experience was awesome. It was great, because then I was just inundated with more people, more people of different, varying backgrounds and ethnicities. And, like, again, I went to UBC during the time where I'm just going to say it was still fun, because now they've kind of clamped down on the fun factor, because it's more of a bigger town or community, that you could say, because a lot of people that live there don't even go to school there. They just live there. So they've had to cut back on the students' wildness. But when I was there, oh boy, was it fun. Oh my goodness, was it fun. I had a blast in university. I really did.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good. It definitely. I remember, being out there in the '90s and it being a fun place, and yeah, it looked like everybody was really enjoying their university experience, and yeah, it UBC has changed because yeah, there must be tens of thousands of people that live there now that aren't students. They're just families that bought places out there, and yeah, so they don't really want some interruptions from the students that are having fun and partying. And so yeah, it's quite a change.
Yeah, for sure, man. Because yeah, because like I remember times where like there was beer gardens galore, there was this galore, like there was just a lot of always fun events to do,
Yeah.
and it was just a fantastic time at that time. Like I can remember times where, and I always regretted this every time, where I would be studying for a test, let's say. And the next day, I hear from friends of mine that went and played pickup basketball down at the varsity gym, and said, "Oh man, you should have come and play." And I go, "I wanted to, but I got to study for this test." And it's like, "Oh well, you missed Steve Nash. He was there playing, doing pickup." And I'm like, "Of course he was. Of course he had to come during the time when I had to study for this stupid test. Of course." And I will say this, Darren, that must have happened during the time I was at school 6 or 7 times. Every time I had a chance to play pickup ball against Steve Nash, and I missed out every time. Missed out.
Wow.
So that's my story about Steve Nash. The time that almost was. It really was.
Almost
The time that
happened.
almost was.
Darn it. Wow. That's crazy. I feel sorry for you, but I'm glad you were studying and being a very smart student to trying to get those grades and finish finish that education. And then you got a broadcast journalism diploma, and that must have been fantastic because you always had a love of sports.
Yep. Yep. So basically after I was done university, I I worked for a little bit, but then I thought to myself, you know what, I'd like to change what I do. So I got into broadcast journalism because I guess I like the sound of my own voice. I really do. And I thought that this would be something that I could excel at. And so I did the coursework. I worked for Course Entertainment for a little bit, for a couple of years there, and it was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, as you go through life, sometimes reality can smack you hard in the face. And unfortunately, with Chorus, well, they have certain practices that I necessarily didn't agree with, which was to the extent of, let's say, for instance, I'm not going to mention any names, but a man that's been working for a company for 20 odd years, and his his being fired was not performance based, but it was like a streamlining of the company. And so I saw many times people be blindsided by saying, okay, well, unfortunately, this is the end of the road for you. You're fired. And then be escorted out by security immediately afterwards. I always thought that was such a slap in the face. After you dedicate so many years of your life to this company, and this is how they treat you at the end of it when it's all said and done.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, after I saw that a number of times, I thought, ooh, I don't know if this is where I want to be now. Because I didn't know if I could trust whenever I come into work that I would still have the job the next day. And that's just something that nobody needs to have hanging over their shoulders or over their head constantly all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with racism. That was just just didn't like somebody and just said see you later. Is that the case?
No, it definitely didn't have anything to do with racism, since I was the only black person there on staff. And they didn't fire me because, well, I was pretty cheap at the time. So yeah, there's no need for that. um, but
Right.
no, these are just your everyday people,
Okay.
just coming into work. And then unfortunately, uh, this the one day that they just say, you know
That
what,
was it.
you're too expensive,
Yeah.
you're gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in my broadcasting career as well. And I look fondly back on those times. That's when you and I started crossing paths and having lots of opportunity to be at the same events. And I could see your dynamic personality and the way that we could talk about sports and music and have a lot of fun with it. That's where we finally started connecting. And I'm glad we exchanged numbers and then started yeah, being friends. It was a good time for me. I was in the broadcasting world, and it happened to me on quite a few occasions. I'd walk into the station and they'd say, "Oh, this person's gone, that person's gone, or the whole entire department's gone." And I saw that happen. It's a very weird industry in that department in that way.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you know, I guess it's something that you have to individually wrap your head around to say, okay, well, this is the nature of the beast, and I have to be good with the fact that I could be fired at any point in time going forward. And I know for myself, it really irritated me because it's like if I put in full effort and yet my effort is still not enough, I just thought that there was something very, very wrong and broken with that.
Right.
I still do to this day. I still do. Because at least with what we do now, if I put in full effort, I'm not going to be fired.
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit when we were talking about you traveling into the U.S. and it had been different from your experience here in Canada. What about abroad? What about you went to Spain? What about countries that you visited in other parts of the world? Did you experience racism? Did you feel it? Did you have any encounters where you can remember not feeling?
I'm going to be honest. Like about 2 years ago, when I went to Portugal for my 40th, I definitely didn't experience any of that there. It felt great, welcoming, nice. The people there were nice. I never felt the stereotypes being like heaped upon me like I would in the US of A. Um, Portugal was Portugal was a pleasure to visit. It was just really, really nice. The people there were nice. Um, I didn't have that feeling that I would have if I went to the US. And also, too, I wanted to say about the US, that feeling actually increases the farther down south you go. Northern parts of the states are pretty good. Farther south you go, it gets a lot worse. It's a
Right.
lot worse. So I'd say that was fine. England, actually, where my two uncles live. Now there's another. That place is weird. That's all I'm gonna say. It's weird in the respect that I remember the first time I went to a football game, and then in the arena, it actually has placards saying racist language or discriminatory language will not be tolerated and yada yada yada. So I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking to myself, why do you have to put a sign that says that? You should actually know that's not a right thing to do anyways. But they actually have signs saying this. I kind of thought it was utterly ridiculous. Are you kidding me? Is this what they do? Is this what the football fans do to footballers? And then I heard it for myself. Yeah, that's what they do. It's actually pretty awful, especially if you're a footballer of color. It's not it's not a lot of fun out there at times. It's not a lot of fun out there at times at all. So maybe now with this movement that we're in right now, maybe when like the footballers allow audience back in and stuff like that, maybe there's going to be even more of a significant change in that arena. I would hope to think that should be and will be a thing, because that's just ridiculous, man. That's just ridiculous. Like why would you need to put that up there? Everybody should know that that's not tolerated. That Yeah. So that's one of the big things for me about the UK. Like
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a shock. That's amazing that they would even have to post a sign like that. You'd think that that would just be pretty obvious to, the majority of people. So, why is there such a huge shift in consciousness after George Floyd was murdered? Why are we finally seeing that? There seems like it's top of mind for everybody. We're seeing protests around the world. Why now?
I would say number one, first and foremost, is the pandemic. I think it's because of the fact that we're all focused on the same thing right now. Everybody has a lot of time for self-reflection. And then also, too, people are just tuned into the news. Like whatever's on the news, people are tuned into. So when that happened with George Floyd, you couldn't turn away. You didn't actually have something else to to distract you, to take your focus away from it. It was front and center in front of everybody's eyes. And everybody saw the same thing that I did. Saw a guy die needlessly. And that people that were trying to help said person were powerless to help him. Powerless. And then the way the cop nonchalantly had his hands in his pockets, doing it, killing this man, right? The man cried out for his mother, for God's sakes. These things, that whole visual scene resonated with people. People now knew that is utterly wrong for anybody to have to go through that. It's unfortunate that we go through it the most, or indigenous or other minority groups, but it's there. And so now you have to realize it's a problem. You now know it's a problem. And also, too, people have the time to do some research if they so like, or if they so choose to, by looking at YouTube or looking on the internet. You can educate yourself because, you got time now. You really do.
Right.
And so I would say that the pandemic is what helped push the movement even further than what it has been pushed in the last 5 to 6 years. And it's all coming all at once. And it's great to see. It's fantastic to see. It really is.
You mentioned some diversity in things that you've talked about. Obviously, there was some diversity differences in Edmonton compared to Abbotsford, and then compared to your experience in Vancouver at UBC. Diversity is a fantastic thing, and it seems like it can really open people's eyes to all the different cultures and all the different ins and outs of people. Do you think that that's one of the biggest problems in the U.S. is the lack of diversity in certain neighborhoods? There's a lot of segregation, a lot of issues and difficulties with that. Is that something that they can change maybe one day?
Uh, it will take time and effort to change that, but yes, I do believe that can all change because like it's the closeness of your neighbors. If your neighbor is, let's say, as you growing up, you got one neighbor that's Chinese, one's Japanese, one's Filipino, but you all live in the same community. And then as you grow up, you begin to learn more about their culture as they learn more about yours as well. And then that breeds a certain familiarity where now you see they're not so different from yourself. Like they still have the same similarities. They're still trying to raise their kids right. They're still trying to get them to school and all that sort of good stuff. It's the closeness that can break down barriers. Like if you have that cultural diversity within a community, it can definitely break down the barriers or of the stereotypes that you think you have, that you hold, that all of a sudden are broken once you meet said people from that group. Because then all of a sudden they're not like what you thought they would be at all. They're completely not like what you thought they would be. So.
Yeah. Mention talk about some of your heroes growing up, some of the guys that you looked up to in the sports world, entertainment world, music. Shed some light on that.
Well, okay. So first off, number one, first and foremost, my first hero for me is my mother. All right. I want to say that I'm very proud of that fact. She was a fantastic woman, and she did her best to raise me to who I am today. And I am always eternally grateful for her being as wise as she was. Another guy that I really do respect, I respect everything that he Rock. I love The Rock. That guy he's just all sorts of awesome. You know what I mean? Like, he's just all sorts of awesome. He does great things. He does great things for the community. Yeah, I've always been inspired by his words and what he has to say. Um, he's definitely one. He's right up there. And to a certain extent, I would say one of my all-time favorite basketball players, Michael Jordan. I liked Michael Jordan because of his approach to business and how he conducted himself as a businessman whenever he was in front of the lights or being interviewed and stuff. I always appreciated how professional he was at all times. So there's two.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Very appreciate it. Yeah. It's nice that you shed some light on those guys. You mentioned the Hockey Diversity Alliance last time briefly at the end of our episode. Can you talk a little bit more about them? There was some great videos that I've seen of them. There was one where Vander Kane was talking, and he said that, it's pretty unfortunate when you're a professional athlete, a hockey player like this, and you wear a flashy suit and they say you're being too black, and you wear a conservative suit and you're being a little too white. Kind of a hard where to find the line there. I thought that was pretty poignant and pretty right on the point by what he said.
Well, you know what? The one thing I do love about these gentlemen getting together to create this alliance is they're trying to incite healthy discussion about the problems that we face, especially the problems that they face being a minority group within the NHL, because they do not have a lot of representation there. And with what you just said there, and yes, there's been a lot of talk about being too black or being too white or being, every time I hear that kind of stuff, it's nonsense to me. You want to know why it's nonsense? A person should be allowed to be whoever the hell they want to be. They should be allowed to be whatever individual they want to be without any of these stupid hang-ups or what people think that should be associated with them. Because number one, you associate those things with them because they're black. Now, if that person, let's say if Evander Kane was white and he wore a flashy suit, people just like, oh man, it's just flashy. He looks like Craig Sager. Awesome. That's amazing, right? It's because of the skin color. It really is. And for me, as I've grown up, as I've learned for myself, I'm just going to be me, regardless of what you think. And that's what these young men are trying to tell them. Regardless of what you think or how you think it, we're going to be us, because us is awesome. And you know what? You'll learn in time. But we have to have these discussions so that you understand that, what you're saying is somewhat insulting, somewhat rude, very discriminatory. But that's why the alliance is there. That's why. It's to incite education. It's to teach. It's like a teaching tool to teach everybody this is what we have to face on a day-to-day. And also, too, I love the fact that they really want to tackle the grassroots so that the kids coming up don't feel that they have to do it alone. Because that's an awful thing to know if you're a kid coming up and you're the only black kid on the ice, and then you have to deal with that all the time. But again, even if you do have to deal with that, those kids have friends. Those friends will always stand up for you. They will always have your back, regardless of your background, regardless of your religion, regardless of all of that, because your friends are always going to be your friends.
Yep.
And they will always have your back in situations like that. Because I believe that's one of the things that Wayne Simmons, who's also on the Diversity Alliance, he mentioned that as he was coming up, that he had his friends. So whenever stuff like that did happen, they were the first over the boards to beat on the dude, because they said, we're not having it. We're not having it. And
Nice.
That was awesome to see. That was awesome to hear.
And you grew up a hockey fan, even though there wasn't as many black kids in the sport, black players in the NHL. You grew up a fan of hockey, even though it wasn't as diverse as some of the other sports we talked about.
Oh no, yeah, no, I definitely did. Number one, it's because a lot of my friends like the NHL and stuff, and oh man, it was hard to point to some of the players back then that were of color, but there was still a couple like Grant Fuhr, like Pokey Reddick, guys like that. But they were there. They were there. But it was, but as we go along, as I see it for myself, there's more and more beginning to be integrated into the NHL, which is awesome to see. It's great because now kids know it's like it's a possibility. I could do it. Those guys did it. I can do it too now. So, and like an NHL, hockey period. That's our sport. That's Canada's sport. So, as being a Canadian, yes, I watch hockey because it's a good sport. It's a great sport. Yeah. And I'm just more elated to see that there's more representation coming down the pipe as we go along.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sports has the ability to unite people of all races and colors and creeds, and it's been really great. Very easy to trumpet a lot of amazing, solidarity movements. You see in an NFL locker room, there's a lot of diversity there, and these guys get along really, really well. Unfortunately, as we've seen in some of the ownership, there have been racism brought down, and we saw it a few years back now, I guess, with Donald Sterling owning the LA Clippers. And when they finally realized his racial views, they sold the team to Steve Ballmer and righted that wrong. We're seeing it now in the NFL, and it's been quite controversial over the last few years with the Redskins owner Dan Snyder. There's been some new developments this week about finally getting rid of the name, and then even yesterday talking about these minority owners wanting to sell it off. What are your views on the subject of the Redskins and Dan Snyder?
It's kind of funny because I believe Dan Snyder in 2013 said categorically, "Name stays. I'm never going to change the name." And I at that point in time, I remember thinking to myself, for now, you get to keep that name. I don't know about the future, buddy. I don't know. Oh, would you look at that? It's the future now. And it looks like if he does not get on board, okay, because Dan Snyder wants to try to dig his heels in. Clearly, he doesn't want to change the name. So other companies and businessmen are like, okay, then we'll attack you a different way. We'll hit you in your wallet. We're going to hit you in your wallet because then that should get your attention that we actually mean business. I think it was 87 investment firms have asked other investors like PepsiCo, Nike, and FedEx to pull their support of the Redskins. And Nike already has. All their apparel is off the shelf. The NFL has done the same thing. Pulled the Redskins stuff off the shelves. Now you're not making any money from that. And it's almost as if I don't know what he's trying to say, what kind of statement he's trying to make. Because if you're a smart businessman, you just make the change and you move on. Not a big deal. But if you're trying to make the other statement that I hope you're not trying to make, well, that's not going to work in this day and age right now. That's a bad look for you. That's a very bad look. So I hope that he gets on board with the program, because if he doesn't, he may find himself in a Donald Sterling situation where the league says, well, now we're just going to take it away from you. We're going to take your team from you. We're going to make you sell the team to somebody else that will change the name. Because it's not like there isn't precedence. There is in a different league, but it's been shown that it can be done. Yeah. It can be done. And it's very disconcerting to hear that if the minority owners that own 40% of the team, which is Robert Rothman, Frederick Smith, and Dwight Scharr, they want to sell their 40%. That means he really doesn't want to change. He still doesn't want to change the name of the team, wow, which is amazing to me. Yeah. It's not a big deal because, as I think it was, I might be misquoting, but it might have been Michael Wilbon saying, if they change the name of the team, they can have old school Redskins apparel and then the new stuff. You could double down and make even more money. More money. Isn't that what you always want to do? It's just about more money. All you got to do is just change this name of this team, and then he still doesn't want to do it. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, what the league does in the next couple of weeks, to see if he acquiesces, to see if he does finally change the name of the team, or he tries to fight it out, which he might. He's going to lose, but he might do it.
Unfortunately, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has jumped on board and tweeted that he doesn't think the Redskins and Indians should change their name. He said that the NASCAR shouldn't have got rid of the Confederate flag, and to have the leader of the country supporting these types of things, it's a shock, and we're sure hoping that there's a change at the top, because I think Barack Obama came in and started changing a lot of things for the better, and then Donald Trump has reversed course, and I think everybody really hopes that there's a change at the top, and the U.S. can move forward.
I've never seen a president as divisive as Donald Trump, or a man that just says, well, I know I should or I could do it this way, but I don't like that. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go the complete opposite, wrong way for the entirety of the country. I'll say this. If this isn't the greatest voter turnout for the US of A ever, ever, then I don't know. Then I guess you get what you get. You know what I mean? Like honestly, man, as we've gone through his entire term, his 4-year term, I guess you could say I'm definitely not a Trump supporter, but I can't point to what he's done that's been really good. I can't point to anything. Not one thing.
Yeah.
Not even off the top of my head. There's nothing. So if you want that guy to do another 4 years for you, I think you'd have to be kind of crazy. Yeah. A little bit. You know what I mean? I can't see how anybody at this point in time would want him back in office. Yeah. I just can't see it. Why would you want that? Instead of trying to unify the country, he wants to blow it up. He wants to tear it apart. It's amazing to me. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing. It sure is. Yeah. It's I can't think of anything either. I could really rack my brain, and I'm pretty sure I couldn't come up with much that he's done good. So I guess we touched on the Redskins and the Indians, and his view of it and our view of it. During the Black Lives Matter movement here in Canada, there's a lot of peaceful protests, and Indigenous people stood up and said, please include us in this, because we've faced so much oppression and systematic racism ourselves. I'm glad that they are getting more of a platform. And here in Canada, unfortunately, it's a massive problem. In the U.S., obviously, it's a massive problem too. But I think we see the racism really in our face here with them, and the plight that they've had to endure after we came and took over their countries. I'm really hopeful that the light shed on this can help them out too.
Oh, I'm sure it will, because the Indigenous people have suffered a great deal in this country, and they continue to suffer a great deal in this country. I could bring up an example. For instance, with all the Indigenous people that have disappeared on the Highway of Tears. All right, there is a ton of young women that have lost their lives there, and there was never any real reporting done on that. But all of a sudden, if there was, let's say, somebody Caucasian or white that died, then all of a sudden they have all of this public outcry and outpouring of we have to find the person and everything else. That's where equality has to come in at some point in time. If you're gonna do it for one, you got to do it for everybody. Understand? You can't pick and choose. That doesn't work. That never did work. And you know what? We're not going to put up with it any longer. It has to be equal. You have to have as much emphasis on everybody. If somebody misses, then you gotta look into that, and you gotta put forth the effort that's needed to try to find the people that's doing these killings or whatever, right? And
Yeah, you're right.
I hope, my sincerest hope is that there is some sort of systemic change on the part of people in power, so that, the indigenous people are not always having to fight this wave of social injustice that affects so many minorities across the globe. My hope is that, changes happen that, help better their lives going forward.
I really appreciate your time today. It was so nice to get some reflection and insight into your upbringing and all the things that you faced as a black kid and as a black man. I think this is going to be really great and well received by our viewers and listeners. Anything else that you wanted to say regarding that hour that we spent?
Uh, I guess the only thing I'd like to touch on is that, now with the whole movement and everything that's gone forward, at first I was quite cynical about if there's actually going to be any change that's happened. But now, as time has gone by, and there's actually real fundamental and policy change that's happening in some of the U.S. states and stuff, and not just here, but around the world and certain countries. And then also too, seeing the globe come together with the protests, it's a beautiful thing to see. It's nice to see that there is hope. Hope is on the horizon. It is there. It is not dead. And all we have to do is just keep pushing and fighting for it. And we'll get there. We'll all get there together.
Great. Well said. I agree. And we got to keep having conversations. We got to keep this diversity alliance up. We've got to, come together, different cultures, and just talk and make this happen. This is a world-changing event we're going through with the pandemic, world-changing event going through with this Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm glad, Jason, that you could do your part, tell your story, and come into the Complete Sports Media podcast and share it with us. So thanks so much again. Enjoy your week. I'm sure we'll be talking lots as things go on, and we'll see you next Monday for sure.
We'll see you next Monday. All right. See you later, my friend.
Okay. Take care, Jason. Bye for now.
Care. Bye.
Okay. Well, hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Yeah. Really nice to see his perspective on this. And the light's been shed. Hopefully the walls have been torn down, and we don't get this systemic racism, inequality, police brutality. Let's hope that's in our rearview mirror, and we can all come together as a society and love each other. Jason Cameron is a fantastic individual, one of my really all-time best friends, and I'm so glad he's contributing on a weekly basis to these podcasts, and he's able to tell his story. I hope you liked it as much as I did. I just want to do a shout out to my niece and nephew. Lee and Evelyn have become watchers and listeners of the podcast, and really, really happy to be able to give them some content. Lee said he's become a fan of Jason Cameron and hopes he gets a chance to meet him one day. I hope they get that opportunity. They live in Melbourne, Australia, so really far away, but they were able to come visit this past summer, and let's hope we get to see them again soon, and he gets an opportunity to meet Jason. Jason's such a great guy. And I hope Lee and Evelyn are able to get some information from a podcast like this that shows about the racial problems that we've had, but hopefully we're fixing them and we can have a better society moving forward. So thanks to all the faithful listeners and viewers of the show. It was another edition of Complete Sports Media. I've been proud to bring it to you. Thanks so much for your time, and we will see you very soon. Love you. Bye for now.